Hello, everyone. Nice to see you all again. Welcome to the meeting. As always, add yourself to the quick reports if you got something you'd like to talk about. If not, a few quick agenda items from me. I pushed out a new version of Discretize last week. It's the one that doesn't have properties. So if you do run into any issues, make sure to post the bug, put a bug report on GitHub, and I'll try to squash it right away. Try to make sure that it's not related to you like having mixed installations. You know what I mean? Like make sure that you've installed it again, like rerun all your setup pies and make sure it's installed properly first. And then if you're having issues like installing it, ask on like I'd say put a thing on Slack. But if it's something related to how it's being used and like ran, just drop a bug on GitHub. Does anybody else have anything they'd like to talk about as far as agenda items? Or just general announcements?
Huber has a talk he should announce.
Sorry, what did you say, Lindsay?
Oh, you have a kegs talk you should announce.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's next Tuesday at 1 p.m. Pacific time. So we're talking about PGI, of course, but I will try to put that in the broader context of what's been happening in joint inversion, either from CSM and other places like Max Bootcamp work, etc. So getting like a view of that. So I will actually try put the link here, like maybe in the chat, and I will add it to the note as well.
Good. Thanks for doing that.
And Houston, of course. Like I like when I talk about CSM, I often think about Jaja, but he's not at CSM anymore.
Yeah. Okay, well then, if there's any other announcement, we can get on some quick reports. I've opened a new PR on SimPEG to update the boundary condition, like the DC code to use the new boundary condition stuff, simplifying it. Right now, there's a few linking errors that we need to, like at this point, it'd probably just to be a slight ignore because it has to deal with renaming things from master to main. So I've gone through and updated most of the links to point to main branch instead of master. I think it's just a little bit of stuff on the back end that needs to be changed in the documentation website. That should just be just fine, but that's the only reason I think that was failing. Other than that, I'm still working on the presentation for the PAR CFD conference thing. So that's about all I've got for this week. I'll be working on, in addition to that, I'll finish up I can add the same boundary condition stuff to the nodal formulation for DC, as well as get the 2D MT stuff pulled closer in now that the boundary condition stuff is on Discretize. So that was a necessary part of that, so that'll be good. Let's see. Lindsay, see you next on there.
Sure, I just have a couple quick things. The first one is question/request, maybe. There's a conversation I was having on Slack with Neil. He's been looking at running a bunch of different sort of simulations, mostly I think DC at this point. But he was interested in sort of, generating some of the plots like what we've done of the currents and electric fields and the physics. And in doing so, he sort of he wasn't really aware of the fields object. He wasn't using it at all. And I was looking for examples of how to use it and access it, but most of the stuff I've done, like it gets buried in a complicated plotting function. And so it's actually really hard to tease out what we're doing. So wanted to just put it on the table and ask if folks would be interested in tutorials around sort of using the fields object. So perhaps adding that one to each method. I don't think it would need to be super in-depth, but a simple example or tutorial on like what's available to be accessed from each of the fields objects for each of the different simulations. So it's probably a question mostly for Devin, if you would be game to take something like that on at some point. I don't think it's super urgent, but saw that kind of surface as a bit of a need.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really good idea, because we're not always just simulating data. Sometimes you want to see what's actually happening within the entire domain. So I think I kind of looked into that at one time, but a while ago, but maybe there were some changes with how we were managing fields, and I decided to just kind of wait until it's in its final form, but it would be really good to add.
I think it would be great to like just improve the documentation of the fields objects themselves. Like that'd go a long way.
Yeah, I think that's kind of where I got lost.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's potentially, I guess I have two thoughts on this. There's part where I think that we should actually refactor a bit of the fields object, and rather than having it be this like smart dictionary, it just be methods like electric field, fields.electric fields, and then you just pass it the source and anything else. But we have some useful stuff in there now, so be sort of inclined to at least like have a few more examples or either documentation or tutorials as to how those are used. The second thing I wanted to just put out there is I've been going back and forth with another John who's going to be starting as a master's student with me in the fall. And he's interested in remnant magnetization. And so Doug and I have been chatting a bit about some of the challenges or sites that it's come up that sort of reconciling physical property information and borehole data and geophysical inversion results has proved challenging. So if you have examples in mind, or in particular any papers would be great, but if not, any examples or thoughts around that, feel free to share those. I'd be very curious to hear what you've come across.
Actually, Xiaolong, from your experience with Yagua and with Jaja, have you encountered cases where you're actually trying to reconcile like the inverted magnetic susceptibility that you've got with borehole data and also with MagSus measurements along the borehole? So has that been part of your background or Jaja's?
That's not my focus of my PhD thesis, the borehole magnetic inversions.
Right, but you're with the group with Jaja. I was just wondering if that's ever come up.
I think so. Yes, I think so. Maybe we can talk with Dr. Sun.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. John, I see you up next on the quick reports.
Yeah, I just have a quick update. There's a hairdryer going in the background here, so sorry. Yeah, just getting back into the swing of things. I just got off the project, and yeah, coming back to reality and to civilization and getting back into it. But I've started finishing up that document for starting a Kubernetes cluster, so that, yeah, run on that tiling, and you can set up like a nice SaaS network. So have that done by the end of the week, and yeah, it's in a curve note. Do I just share it with SimPEG, like, and that'll share it with everybody, or how do I do that exactly? I'm not too sure.
There's two things you can do. You can put it in the SimPEG project, if that's where you started it, and everyone here will have access to that. Or if you just put it on your own profile and make it public, then we can all see it.
Okay. Yeah, I'll do one with you then.
Cool. Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing that. It's like I've always been curious how it's like, oh man, if I had a bunch of like Linux machines, how could I get them set up as a little local cluster? It's kind of interesting. Devin, I see you got yourself on there.
Yeah, I'm just kind of trying to find time to chip away at the doc strings and the API related stuff for discretize. So there's some movement, not at the rate that I'd like, but yeah, I think it's pretty important. So I'm trying to put in some work on that. And I guess Soggy's not here today, so I might add another thing. Joe, Soggy, and I met on Friday and came up with an action plan for EM1D. So Soggy's decided to take the first stab at that and did some work over the weekend to try and put the finishing touches on the EM1D stuff so we can bring it into SimPEG. So kind of prioritize that.
He's pushing stuff as we speak, so that's good. I'm happy to see that.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of,
Someone said his name too loud.
Soggy, we were just talking about you.
Well,
Do you want to get Soggy? Do you want to give us an update on the EM1D stuff really quick? Just
I thought like we could finish that by afternoon hack, but it's much more work. I'm still working on it. But I made some progress. I think I kind of changed the structure such that it can use the existing frequency domain and time domain survey class. Yes, I think I did the first path for both of the codes. Yeah, it's actually like it's working well. The serial version is actually faster than the previous one. I think it's mostly Joe's that the function that computes the reflection coefficients, I guess. But the parallel version is actually a bit slow, which I'm not. So I was actually playing a little bit with that because I think it seems related to the overhead about what we're passing. It's an odd problem because each one, the simulation is really cheap. Sometimes it's less than a millisecond or about a millisecond. So if the overhead is actually more than millisecond, actually you're overkilling with the parallelization. Anyway, so that's that's where I am. But I think overall things are working.
Might want to try. I would say try breaking it up into like chunks of sources or something. Then.
Yeah, something like that. So I think rather than for each sounding, I think we probably need to do a chunk.
Yeah, I'd say do chunks of sounding. Just reduce the overhead, the calling overhead.
Yeah, so we probably need to rethink about the parallelization a little bit differently, I guess. Yeah. Anyway, yeah, other than that,
it's causing too much overhead. Okay, thanks, Soggy. Xiaolong.
Hi. So last week I did some Mino updates. So remember, did some Mino updates for the tutorial of cross gradient. So remember last time I showed the 2 blocks and performed the geometry inversion. We can see some linear train. As Dr. Sun and Sagi suggested, I created the 3 blocks with different susceptibility and density values, and then I performed the geometry inversion and got some good results for the tutorials. That's what I did the last week.
Cool. Dom, I remember you brought up to me when you were running through some of them. Did you figure out what those issues were that you had with the
You mean the checkboard issue?
Dom was, I think you said you were running through some of the tutorials on the cross gradient. And you're,
Oh, yes.
I don't know what the issue were you having, but were you able to figure it out?
Yeah, it's the self.chi, right? So basically, if the model wasn't set on the simulation, if you don't do simulation model equals something, then self.chi is not defined, and then as soon as it hits the thing, then properties is unhappy because self.chi is none. Yeah, I didn't have time to create a pull request on it. I mean, I think we just need to, as you said, just do a try catch, right? A try exception on a self.chi. I'm still very unsatisfied with the whole properties, chi and row and all that stuff. It makes it very complicated for something that should be very simple, but we can cross that bridge later. I will create a PR.
That rings a bell. I remember that, like when I was when I created indeed updated PGI to the simulation class, etc. I ran into that issue, and I'm pretty sure I put a PR to fix that. So I had PGI and the joint tutorial of PGI working with simulation. So
so it's still on a PR, you're thinking?
No, I'm pretty sure that was like,
I think you did the mod of doing the checking for self.chi, but that doesn't work if the model isn't set, basically. So we need to review this thing.
This is weird. Let me check back again which was that PR, but that's exactly what I had fixing, that there was no model. So instead I think I was looking at something that was like set, like the shape of the mapping or something like that. So
okay, so I'll let you look at it before then. You ping me after you look at it.
I think the best step was just to do a try catch, like try accept bracket there to catch it properly and then just move on.
Yeah.
It's the issue is that it's like trying to access something that doesn't exist yet and then set it to be something, but it wasn't. Like it's just, I think whatever Thibault we had done to update that functionality just tweaked it in a little bit way that wasn't quite correct. So I think the best process is to just, like I sent it down. I wasn't sure if you got to try that yet, but
no, yeah, that makes sense. We'll just put a try accept.
Dom, I'm gonna add it to the notes too, but I also put the link to that PR in the chat.
For some reason, KervNode doesn't update for me. Anyway, you put it in the chat.
Okay. Well, then do we want to move on? Don, we have a few notes there too, since we're talking.
Yeah, so nothing pushed on the main SimPEG, but the past 2 weeks I've done a lot of work on the ZTEM, or like natural source tiled, just to figure out a strategy to be able to tile spatially as well, and then find out that we still needed a John to do the tipper, to update the tipper receivers. So I might just push on our branch for now, but just letting you know that I've been working on that side of things. That's it.
I should be able to whip that tipper up pretty quickly.
Oh, it's done. Yeah.
Oh, it's done. Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah. I just need to.
ZTEM, no, sorry. It's a bit different, right?
Sorry, tipper receivers, whatever. Tipper receivers.
But you need the ZTEM one as well, right?
Okay. Well, yeah, let's talk then. Yeah, I think I'm a bit confused then, I guess. What's the difference between the two? But
I think there's a little bit of difference between using the tipper and then the ZTEM.
Okay.
But yeah, we should chat, because I'm going to jump into the MT stuff here again real quick.
Sounds good. Yeah. So I'll push on our tiled simulation, and then let's talk again, I guess. Yeah. And I'm very happy that you guys are working on the EM1D, because we want to update our applications to be able to run on 0.14, but yeah, the EM1D stuff is kind of critical for us to be able to pull the plug. So I'm quite excited that you guys are working on it. Thank you very much.
Does anyone else have any other quick reports or anything they'd like to update on? We've gone through most people. Any other announcements? If not, it'll be a short meeting tonight.
Well, I guess, Joe, you were saying that you were going to try bring in the boundary conditions for the MT, the 2D stuff as well. Yeah, maybe we can try and bring in the the MT pull request that we had started. It's pretty much passing, except for there's just like some doc that isn't. So it's pretty much ready to go. So we can bring all those into one and try and do a big mashup, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, we can look at them individually and then pull them in.
Yeah, sounds good.
All right, I need to get rocking anyway, so see you next week, guys.
Just a sec, Dom, 1 second just before you rock, okay?
Yeah.
Can you remember the year that we did La Paloma for GIF tools?
I can find out. Yeah, I've actually found it. Found the data set on one of my hard drives. So I will pull it again, and I can probably give you a rough guess. Yeah.
Oh, that would be great. Yeah.
Do you need the data or?
Well, yeah, we will need the data, but that's lower priority list, just to try to get refamiliarized with what we were trying to do. And I remember we had some workarounds for, getting like approximate effective magnetic susceptibility using the borehole stuff, but we never really tackled that head on. And this is a good time to do it. So La Paloma, I think, was certainly one place. You were also mentioning Kivitsa, which we could talk about later. Maybe that's not such interest to everybody here, but I couldn't remember what you actually had for borehole data at Kivitsa and whether that's also a good place to look.
I think it's better because La Paloma, right, as I told you, Barrick doesn't hold the property anymore. So, the rights of being publishing the data, the results is probably going to be a lot harder. And Kivitsa, we have a full 3D geological model for it with tons of boreholes. So, to me, it's more interesting. But yeah, we can talk later.
Well, if you could find
I will pull it.
Where La Paloma is, that'd still be good.
I will do it. Yeah.
Hi, Doc. Yeah, I just realized the question you just asked me about the borehole magnetic data. So yeah, as I know at this moment, nobody in our group do the work related to borehole magnetic or the gravity, but I'm not sure whether Dr. Sun has these data, because I think the idea and the data he have is way much more than the students he have. So maybe maybe I can send an email and CC to you and Lindsay to ask him whether he has some borehole magnetic data.
Well, I can also check with Yagua too. It's not a real high priority thing. We're just trying to look at cases where there was a discrepancy between the inversion result that we're getting and then what the borehole data are actually saying. So
okay, got it. Yeah.
Anyway, thanks for that, Shalom.
You're welcome.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, guys.